Kid comes with his. No extra charge. Right in the Denver square, a pale woman holding her boy was auctioned off.
It's enough to start
Wyatt, the wealthiest heir around, stepped up and tossed $1,000. Onlookers called him crazy, but Wyatt never took his eyes off her. But this wild frontier deal hid a secret nobody knew. Subscribe, like, and comment where you're listening from. I'll send frontier luck and love your way. All right, let us begin. Years ago, there was one wealthy family in Denver that absolutely everybody knew. That was Silas Vance. He owned 5 massive supply stores, and folks lined up outside his mansion every morning begging for favors. A house where gold piled high. But his only son, Wyatt, was a quiet man. He spoke little, had deep eyes, and never backed down once his mind was set. The fall Wyatt turned 28. Something mighty strange happened at the North Denver market. A pale woman stood right in the market square. She carried a 5-year-old boy on her back. A ruthless debt collector stood blocking her, shouting at the gathering crowd. She owes $1,000. Pay it, and she is yours. The onlookers whispered. People pointed and clicked their tongues. Who in the world buys a widow with a boy? The woman stood frozen, head bowed. Only the child on her back watched the crowd. Then it happened. A man pushed through the crowd. Wearing a sharp, tailored suit and a silver pocket watch, he looked important. He stopped at the collector, drawing out cash. $1,000. Tossing it down, he said, "Count it." The whole market went dead silent. The stunned collector grabbed the money, while folks traded shocked looks. Is that Silas's boy? The richest heir in Denver buying a widow at the market. Is he crazy? Unbelievable stuff. Wyatt ignored the gawking crowd. He just told the woman, "Follow me." She looked up, her eyes swimming with heavy tears. Without a single word, she adjusted her child and followed him. The kid on her back finally smiled. But this deal hid a secret nobody knew. That wasn't the first time he saw her face. Let me tell you the whole story. It goes back to when Wyatt was 18. His father, Silas, just opened a 3rd supply store, so Wyatt often ran errands up at the North Denver market. One late autumn day, 3 outlaws jumped him in an alley. They snatched his money pouch and choked him out. An 18-year-old rich kid stood no chance. Collapsing, losing consciousness, he suddenly heard a loud voice. "You let him go." A young girl shouted, wielding a heavy iron skillet. The 14-year-old girl swung that skillet, sending one outlaw running with a scream. Yelling the sheriff was coming, she sent the other 2 running. Crouching by Wyatt, she asked, "Are you all right?" When Wyatt opened his eyes, he saw her bright gaze. Despite the messy hair and dirt smudges, her eyes were clear as autumn skies. Wyatt never forgot that face, not even a decade later. She called herself Clara Miller, said her dad ran a local supply store. Wyatt barely thanked Clara before they parted ways. He visited Miller's store the next day, but it was boarded up. Neighbors claimed Thomas lost the shop overnight and vanished. When asked who took it, everyone stayed dead silent. Wyatt figured out why just a short while after that. Looking through his father's ledger, he spotted a familiar store name, Miller Supply. Wyatt stared at that ink, clenching his jaw tight. 10 years passed. Wyatt tried tracking Clara down, but the trail always went cold. He heard Thomas died early from the shock. He could only pray Clara was surviving somewhere out there on the frontier. Seeing that woman's face at the market today, Wyatt stopped dead. 10 years passed, but her gaze never changed. Eyes clear as autumn skies. Wyatt knew instantly. That was Clara. $1,000 meant nothing. He would have drained his whole fortune without blinking. Now here's the real trouble. Bringing Clara home meant Silas finding out was inevitable. Picture this. Wyatt pushed the gates, wondering when Vance would uncover Clara's real identity. Clara trailed behind him carrying little Billy. The finest wrought iron gates in all of Denver creaked open. That slow creak sounded mighty like a warning. Vance owned a small bunkhouse out back. Wyatt put the girls there. Clara stayed dead silent. She just scanned the dusty room. Billy sat on the floorboards, slapping the wood with his tiny hands. It was warm. Billy stared up at Clara. "Mama, it's warm." Clara shut her eyes tight. When she opened them, tears pooled on her lashes. Wyatt looked away. "You need anything, just say the word. Might not fix it fast, but I'll listen." Clara just glared back, completely guarded. Makes sense. Some cowboy buys your freedom for $500, you're bound to be spooked. Wyatt didn't explain a thing. It wasn't the right time. "Get some sleep." He shut the cabin door. His boots felt like lead crossing the dusty yard. He already saw the coming storm playing out. His father would find out. Sheriff Owens wouldn't stay quiet either. Someday, Clara would figure out exactly why he bought her. Wyatt muttered to himself as he stepped up onto the main house porch, one piece at a time. That night, a lone lantern glowed inside the bunkhouse. Clara sat awake, her little boy fast asleep. An old scrap of fabric rested on her lap. She had pulled it from Billy's clothes. A broken silver sheriff's star. The snapped edges were worn and darkly tarnished. Clara held the metal in her palm, staring hard. "Pa?" she whispered, her voice shaking badly. Billy's soft breathing filled the quiet cabin. Come sunrise, Old Man Vance summoned Wyatt inside. "Who did you stash in the bunkhouse last night?" Wyatt didn't even blink. "A woman from town." "Brought? You mean bought. I heard you dropped $500 on her." "I did." Vance narrowed his eyes. "Boy, have you lost your mind? You're engaged? Buying a widow with a kid. The Vance name will be dragged through the mud." Wyatt spoke evenly. "Pa, I just helped someone. That's it." "Helped for $500. Are you a priest now?" Wyatt stayed quiet. Old Vance hollered a good while before waving him off. "Kick her out today." "I can't." "What?" "I said I won't do it." Vance's face turned beet red, but Wyatt stood his ground. Tension filled the parlor as father and son locked eyes. Wyatt turned to leave, but stopped. He looked back, asking quietly, "Pa, you know a Judge Parker?" Pure silence filled the room. Vance's hand froze midair. Just a split second, but that was enough. "No." His voice came half a beat too late. "Right." Wyatt didn't press it, just walked out. "You and I both know what that means." He denied it, but that split-second silence confessed everything. Right then, a shout echoed across the dirt yard. "Mister?" Little Billy was out there chasing a barn cat. Clara rushed out, trying to grab her. Up on the porch, old Vance watched them intently. His eyes narrowed into a dark, calculating stare. Wyatt caught his father's dangerous look. His gut turned icy. Did the old man recognize her? That chilling question planted itself deep in Wyatt's mind. 3 long days passed since Clara moved into the bunkhouse. In all that time, she barely spoke. She stayed holed up inside, just feeding Billy and putting the kid to bed every night. When ranch hands brought food, she just nodded quietly. At the well, she'd lower the bucket in silence. She wanted to stay invisible. But Billy, that little boy had zero fear. He'd chase barn cats across the yard, splash at the well, and sneak around sniffing the cookhouse. The ranch hands adored her. She had those big, bright eyes. Wyatt often watched them from the porch. Whenever Billy sprinted across the dirt, something caught the sun inside his little shirt. Something hung around his neck. Wyatt hadn't seen it up close, but it nagged at his gut. Come the 5th evening, Wyatt walked past the bunkhouse. Billy trotted right out and grabbed his duster coat. "Mister, how come the food's so good here?" Wyatt paused. "Yeah, my mama," Billy pointed toward the dark cabin. "She cries every night. I pretend to sleep, but I know." Wyatt stayed quiet. Little Billy bolted toward the dusty yard, his piece fully spoken. Wyatt stared at the bunkhouse. Faint lantern light bled through the cracked wooden door. "You and I know sleep avoids a troubled mind." Wyatt lay awake, finally learning Clara's dark truth from Zeke, the gritty bunkhouse scout. Zeke heard everything in town. Wyatt called him straight to the parlor. "You know anything about that woman?" "Yes, boss. Heavy rumors flying all over town. She was married to Thomas, a man who drops dead 3 years back." "Why?" "Debts, mostly. He ran a fine dry goods store until things went south, fast. Customers vanished, good cotton rotted in the depot, and his heavy banknotes snowballed." "Did he ruin himself?" Zeke hesitated. "Folks around town reckon someone broke him on purpose. Rumor says Sheriff Owens and his ruthless deputies chased every single loyal customer away." Wyatt narrowed his cold eyes. "Word is Sheriff Owens has a much bigger backer pulling the strings, but nobody knows exactly who." "When did business crash?" 3 years ago, boss." Wyatt quietly did the math. 3 years back matched exactly when he spotted dirty money moving through his father's heavy ledgers. So she dragged herself to town because of the sheriff's brutal debts. That's right, boss. Owens kept jacking up the interest until it crushed her. So Clara grabbed her little boy's hand and marched straight into the dusty town square. Figured she'd sell herself before letting the kid starve. Wyatt closed his eyes. "Understood. Keep digging and report back." "Yes, boss." Zeke stepped out. Wyatt sat alone, untangling the gritty facts. This wasn't any simple coincidence. Clara sat with Martha in the bunkhouse, mending a shirt. Martha glanced at her hands and asked, "Pardon me asking, but where'd you live before?" "Outskirts of Denver." "What'd you do out there? Your stitching ain't exactly ordinary." Clara kept the needle moving. "Learned at my father's old shop." "Your father's shop running dry goods." Clara's needle stopped dead. "Yes." Martha couldn't find her next words. Clara spoke real quiet. "The store is gone." A heavy silence hung between the two women. Martha asked softly, "Know why the boss brought you here?" Clara stayed silent. "Guess you don't know. It's more strange than scary." Martha nodded slowly. "I agree. Let me tell you, the boss ain't bad. He looks gruff, but he checks on the bunkhouse grub every single day." Clara stopped sewing. "Every day?" "Yep. Tells me to keep your plates completely full." Clara dropped her gaze to the shirt. She resumed sewing, though her stitching slowed down considerably. To Clara, that felt even stranger. Meanwhile, Wyatt heard about her relentless mending from Martha. Near sundown, he knocked on the bunkhouse door. "Come in." Clara stopped sewing. Wyatt stood squarely in the open doorway and spoke. "You don't gotta force yourself." Clara set the needle down. "I ain't forcing anything." Sitting idle is much harder. Wyatt studied her face for a minute. Then he asked quietly, "What's hanging around your neck?" Her fingers drifted to her collar. She slowly revealed it. A broken silver locket. The jagged edge where it snapped was badly tarnished. "My father gave me this. I don't know where the other half went." Wyatt stared hard at the silver piece. His heavy heart completely dropped. There was a tiny crest etched on the edge, and Wyatt recognized it instantly. It wasn't the Vance brand. That was the Miller family crest. Wyatt swallowed his shock and gave a stiff nod. "Keep it safe." Clara tucked the silver away and quietly asked, "Boss, why'd you buy my debt?" Wyatt froze in his tracks. "Saw something in town I just couldn't walk past." "Is that all?" "For now, yes." Clara didn't push it, and Wyatt kept his mouth shut. A brief silence filled the room. Little Billy tossed in his sleep. Clara spoke in a low whisper. "Thank you." Billy finally slept warm for the first time. Hearing this, Wyatt stepped out the door. He left the bunkhouse. Standing in the dirt yard, he closed his eyes. Clara was a Miller. That broken silver piece had a match. Wyatt knew exactly where it was hiding, locked deep inside Old Man Vance's private study. How was he going to steal it back and expose the ugly truth? Wyatt stared up at the clear autumn sky. You and I know uncovering truth takes time. 2 days later, Things escalated faster than he reckoned. Old Man Vance suddenly summoned him again. "Hear that woman is sewing?" "Yes, sir." Vance held his whiskey glass. His voice was dangerously calm this time. "You and I know that quiet spelled trouble." "Name?" "Clara Miller." Old Silas Vance's whiskey glass trembled slightly. Just a flicker. Wyatt caught it. "Where are you from?" "Outside Denver. Husband passed 3 years back." Silas stayed real quiet, slowly setting his glass down. "I see." That was it. He asked nothing else. Backing away, Wyatt figured his father recognized her. Things were about to get mighty fast. Wyatt returned to the bunkhouse, picked up a pencil, but did not write a single word. He just chewed that pencil lead, thinking hard. Rumor was, Thomas Miller left something important behind. Wyatt had no clue what it was, or where. But Clara the widow might just know. Trouble was asking Clara straight out would show his hand, making the poor woman clam up fast. He could not rush this. That was Wyatt's plan. Later tonight, faint lamplight spilled from old Silas's window. The cattle baron whispered orders to a ranch hand who tipped his hat and vanished. By sunrise, that rider bolted past the gates. He rode straight for corrupt Deputy Owens's Denver cabin. 3 days later, Owens showed up. Wyatt heard the news by the corral. Zeke ran up, whispering it quickly. He strolled inside, acting completely calm, but his mind was racing wild. "Stick with me here." Owens visiting Silas meant those two were already connected. Down at the tenant cabin, Clara mended shirts, while little Billy played with a barn cat. When Owens rode in, her needle completely froze. She recognized that voice anywhere. "Hey, Billy." Owens spoke to the little boy. A greasy smile stretched across his face. "Eating and sleeping good." Billy dropped the barn cat, stared the dirty deputy down, and just said, "Bad man." Owens's thick eyebrow twitched hard. The cabin door opened. Clara stepped out. "What do you want?" Her voice shook, but eyes held steady. Owens looked her up and down, grinning. "Doing fine, I see. Putting on some weight." "I asked why you're here." Owens spat. "Your dead husband left something behind." Clara's eyes narrowed tight. "I know nothing." The deputy stepped closer. "Thomas Miller left a ledger behind. A real interesting ledger book. Tell me where it's hidden right now, and I'll wipe all those heavy debts clean. Deal?" Clara stayed dead silent. Just as he took another step, heavy boots crunched the dirt. It was Wyatt. He strode across the dusty ranch yard, voice low and steady. "What's all this commotion about?" The deputy tipped his hat, faking a smile. "Just paying respects, boss." "She owed me money." "I paid that off," Wyatt interrupted. 100 silver dollars. We're completely done here, right?" Owens nodded. "Right. But besides money, she has something." "Nothing," Wyatt snapped. "Get off my property." The deputy licked his lips. That fake smile vanished. He glared at Clara, tipped his hat, and slowly rode off. The heavy gate slammed, leaving the dusty yard dead quiet. Clara watched Wyatt, who spoke without looking at her. "He returns, tell me. Don't face him alone." "Much obliged," Clara whispered faintly. Wyatt turned toward the bunkhouse. Clara watched him walk away. Then little Billy tugged at his mother's cotton apron. "Mama, is that cowboy good?" Clara didn't answer. She just gently stroked her boy's hair. That night, Wyatt thought for hours. Owens mentioned a secret ledger. Thomas Miller must have written down everything before dying. It surely held solid proof of Silas's dirty ranching business. Owens hunting for it meant Silas sent his attack dog, proving the old baron was absolutely terrified of those pages. Wyatt figured it all out fast. The ledger was real. Either Clara knew, or it was packed away. He needed it first. Come sunrise, Wyatt headed down to the tenant cabin right at breakfast. Little Billy was wolfing down some warm beans. Clara sat beside him, blowing on hot food. Wyatt stayed outside on the porch, speaking right from the doorway. "Got a question." Clara looked up. You know anything about that ledger Owens mentioned yesterday? Her hands froze completely. She slowly shook her head. I don't know. Staring at Wyatt, her eyes trembled with pure fear. She lowered her gaze. I heard Thomas left something behind right before he passed, but I don't know where. Wyatt nodded. Understood. You remember anything, you come find me. Then little Billy turned with his tin plate, calling Wyatt. Mister, this grub's good. Eat with us. Wyatt stared at the boy. His hardened cowboy face softened just a hair. I ate. Liar, you ain't eaten, Billy pouted. Clara watched them, a rare smile unknowingly spreading across her dusty face. Wyatt caught that smile. The gunslinger turned without a word, though his ears went red beneath his Stetson hat. 3 days passed. Picture this. Wyatt finally made his play that rainy afternoon. His ruthless father was already moving. Silas warned him that Silas Vance had given dirty orders to Sheriff Owens. Left unchecked, that crooked sheriff would surely grab Clara again. Wyatt grabbed his oilskin slicker and headed out. Clara was gathering laundry. Step inside a spell. She dropped her wash basket and entered the cabin. Wyatt crouched by the doorway. I'll shoot straight with you. Clara looked right at him. Sheriff Owens is making a move. He won't breach the main ranch easily, but he'll strike when I ride out. So keep Silas with you when leaving the cabin. Why do you help me? Her frontier voice was quiet. Wyatt chewed on his words before answering. A man doesn't need reasons to help folks. Her eyes didn't buy that tale. Wyatt knew it, but this wasn't the hour for truth. One more thing. Did your late husband leave a ledger? Clara's eyes darted nervously. He did. I still got it. She studied Wyatt a long while, then gave a slow nod. I hid it inside Billy's saddlebag. My husband warned me never to touch it, so I haven't. Wyatt drew a deep breath. Keep it hidden. Don't breathe a word. Clara nodded. For the very first time, real trust flashed in her eyes. A mighty small trust, but enough for him. The storm grew heavier. Wyatt crossed the muddy yard in the downpour. Clara called out, Mr. Wyatt! He turned back. She stood by the cabin door, watching him get soaked. Take my slicker. You'll catch your death. Wyatt stared, then finally pulled it on. Clara stepped back inside. Wyatt marched on, listening to the pounding rain. Her caring words echoed strangely in his mind. Pushing open the parlor doors, Wyatt decided. The poker hand was finally clear. The ledger exists. The silver locket is real. And Clara still doesn't know her true pioneer heritage. How could he weave these three together to break Silas Vance? No more waiting in the shadows. I shoot first. That night, with little Billy asleep, Clara sat alone listening to the storm. The image of Wyatt standing in the freezing rain haunted her. What did that gunslinger really want? No matter how she pondered, she couldn't figure it out. Strangely, that mystery didn't scare her anymore. Wyatt was making his move. Stick with me here. He rode north to North Denver to find old Doc Vance, the very man who taught Wyatt how to read. Doc was too old for the schoolhouse now, but he knew every dirty secret buried in North Denver. He knew the old merchant trails best. Wyatt paid him a solo visit right after the storm passed. Doc Vance sat under a grand pecan tree in his dusty yard reading. Wyatt! Doc, I need some answers. The old man shut his book, his wrinkled eyes studying the cowboy. Take a seat. Wyatt sat, and Doc spoke first. Word says you bought a woman. Wyatt didn't flinch. Frontier rumors ride faster than wild horses. That's true. She's old man Parker's daughter. Doc Vance's eyes narrowed sharply. Parker, the fellow who lost his mercantile and died. Yes. Doc fell quiet. A pecan dropped into the dirt. Doc picked it up, rolling the nut in his palm. Wyatt, you know how that store ended up in your daddy's hands? I've got a guess. It ain't a guess. Your corrupt daddy forged a deed and stole Parker's store. I was standing right there, called as a witness, but I stayed quiet like a coward." The old man's voice sank low. Wyatt just listened quietly. "It's ancient history. Parker's long gone, but now his living flesh and blood is staying under your roof." "That's right." Doc stared at the pecan. "You and I know you can't buy folks. Real frontier bonds ain't forged with money," Doc said. Wyatt carved those words right into his soul. Doc kept pushing. "You plan on telling her the truth? When the time is right. Got a job first." "What's that?" "Guarding the ledger her dead husband left. Sheriff Owens is hunting it." Doc raised a brow. "If Miller's prowling, your daddy's pulling his strings." "Exactly. Watch your back. Your daddy values his reputation far more than human life. You know how cornered men get." Wyatt nodded slowly and stood up. Old Doc Vance called out, "I didn't plant that apple tree. The previous homesteader did." "I just watered it, yet it bears fruit." Wyatt walked out without looking back. Heading home, Wyatt passed the Denver trading post. That was exactly when it happened. A stranger brushed past, slipping a folded note into his hand. Wyatt kept walking, unfolding the paper. It read, "We know about Miller's ledger. First finder wins." Wyatt's eyes narrowed. Was this Sheriff Owens' deputies, or some new outlaw looking for blood? Wyatt pocketed the note and hurried up. That night, he summoned Zeke. "Guard the bunkhouse tonight. Any strangers tell me." "Yes, boss." "And nobody gets near little Billy's saddlebags." Zeke's eyes widened, but he nodded. Wyatt sat alone outside. He thought hard. Owens, Cobb, and others were hunting that ledger, and the book was sitting right inside Billy's bag. Securing it was his first priority. Asking Clara directly would raise suspicion. He had to make her unpack it herself, naturally. While he plotted, Billy solved the problem early next morning. Billy unpacked her bags across the yard. Clara rushed over in a panic to repack. From the mess, she pulled out a wrapped bundle. Her face froze. Wyatt watched it all unfold. Clara clutched the bundle tight. "Boss, you should see this." Clara brought it over. Wyatt untied the cloth, revealing a small, worn ledger inside. The cover was blank. He flipped the pages. Dates, names, cash amounts, stolen goods, and signed witnesses. Wyatt reached the final page. Miller had scrawled a short note. "This ledger proves Boss Cobb ruined the mercantile. I did his dirty work, and these men helped. If my Billy is alive, use this to find justice." Clara stared at the ink, her hands trembling. "Did Miller really know?" Clara slowly shook her head. "No, he never mentioned doing errands or why the store failed." Tears finally spilled from Clara's eyes. Teardrops hit the paper. Wyatt gently took the book back. "This is the key to avenging your father." "My father?" Wyatt paused a moment before speaking softly. "Tell me more about that mercantile." Clara wiped her tears and looked up, her eyes holding deep sorrow. "Pa got sick after losing the shop. He didn't survive the winter, never saying who robbed him. Just said he was wronged." Clara trailed off. Wyatt pocketed the ledger. "Now you and I are gonna make this right." Clara looked at him. "Truly." Wyatt met her gaze. "You'll have to help." "Whatever I can do," she promised. Wyatt stood up. "I'll explain later. For now, keep quiet about this ledger." Clara nodded. As Wyatt stepped away, she called softly. "Wyatt?" He looked back. "Did you take me in for this?" Wyatt stared a moment, then answered, "No." That was all. Wyatt walked out. Clara watched the closed door. Outside, oblivious little bakery chased a stray cat. For days, Wyatt studied the ledger. He had Zeke track down every name listed. Most had already skipped Denver or died, but 2 men were still breathing in Denver. A former deputy and a local merchant. Wyatt decided to visit both men himself. First up was Doc Vance. Doc Vance ran a small apothecary in South Denver. Wyatt walked in. Doc Vance waved him off. "I know nothing. I just signed as a witness." "Forced your signature, huh?" Doc Vance trembled. "I know Boss Cobb is behind this. If they forced you, we can fix it." Doc Vance thought hard. "I can't promise anything. Cobb scares me. Bring a reason." Wyatt left. The second merchant was different. "Now listen here." Silas slamming that door shut gave Wyatt the absolute proof he needed. Being terrified meant hiding something. Wyatt rode back through the bustling frontier market. A thought struck him. The day Clara washed Billy in the yard, Wyatt noticed something. The boy had a red birthmark on his back, shaped like a tiny flame. Wyatt remembered it well. It was the Miller family mark. Doc Miller once said Thomas Miller had that exact same flame birthmark. The silver locket, the black ledger, and that birthmark. 3 undeniable pieces of evidence. Wyatt quickened his pace. Reaching home, he immediately grabbed paper and outlined his plan. Over at the guest cabin, Clara was feeding Billy. The boy took a bite and looked up. "Are we staying here?" Clara stayed silent. Billy waited. "I don't know. I want to stay. The grub is good, and I like Wyatt." Clara stroked his cheek, tears filling her eyes. Clueless Billy kept eating his beans. Clara held her spoon, staring out the window toward Wyatt's cabin. Warm lamplight spilled from his window. Wyatt's shadow showed him furiously writing something down. What was he planning? Clara watched his dark shadow for hours. "Stick with me here." Next morning, little Billy chased a cat straight into Vance's office. The wealthy Silas was sitting there meeting a guest. Billy looked around, locking eyes with the powerful man. "What are you doing here?" Vance sprang up. Holding the cat, Billy did not flinch. Instead of getting scared, he stared back. "Why are you yelling, mister?" "What scary man?" Silas glared. Right then, Clara rushed in. Her face was pale. "Billy, come here now." "Mama," he yelled. "Come here!" Clara grabbed Billy and bowed deeply. "I am so sorry, Vance. My absolute mistake." Silas stayed quiet. He looked at both of them, his gaze locking onto Billy's small face. Billy spoke up. "Mister, your eyes are tiny." Clara frantically covered his mouth. Silas's face hardened, then shifted into something strange. It was not anger or shock, but a messy mix. Wyatt appeared. "Father, he just got lost. I will take him." Silas stared at Wyatt. He looked at Billy. "Go," he muttered. His voice sounded strangely weak. Clara hurried out with the boy. Wyatt followed, holding his father's gaze. The old man's eyes were shaking. Leaving Wyatt thought father recognized something in that boy. Silas definitely saw something incredibly familiar in little Billy's face. Back at the cabin, Clara scolded the boy. "You cannot tell grown men they have tiny eyes." "But they are tiny." "Still no." "Why?" Clara was speechless. Watching from the doorway, Wyatt could not help but chuckle. Clara glanced over. "Why are you laughing?" "Nothing." "You laughed." He did. Billy pointed at Wyatt. "The mister laughed, Mama." Wyatt shut his mouth. Clara stayed quiet too. Then both adults burst out laughing anyway. Confused Billy looked between them. "Why are we laughing?" "I want to laugh too." Covering her smile, Clara hugged him. Real laughter filled the cabin. That soft laughter echoed across the dusty yard. Meanwhile, Deputy Vance was making his own nasty moves. Now you and I know trouble was brewing. Vance hired 3 outlaws to watch Clara's cabin. Their job was tracking when she left, where she went, and what she carried. But Clara rarely stepped outside. Hank guarded her cabin fiercely. Vance grew impatient and plotted a new scheme. He needed to bribe someone on the inside. He searched Silas's men for someone desperate for cash, and found him. It was Jeb, a stable boy drowning in debt. Vance balked that debt and cornered him. "Steal what that woman has hidden, and your debts vanish." Jeb agonized for 3 days. Eventually, he broke. When Clara took Billy outside, Jeb sneaked right into their empty cabin. Suddenly, Hank rushed over from the cookhouse. Jeb froze in his tracks, mumbled an excuse, and bolted. "Step into the frontier with me." Mac checked the bunkhouse. The canvas sack was gone. Mac sprinted to the main house. "Wyatt, something's stolen from the bunkhouse." Wyatt jumped up, but that black ledger was already safe in his coat. He had Clara hide it days ago. The sack Jeb swiped only held an old rag and some dusty letters. Wyatt exhaled. Mac cornered Jeb out back. The kid played tough but cracked fast. He spilled everything about Owens. Wyatt crouched down, asking calm as a breeze, "What did Owens want?" The wrapped sack, Jeb stammered in fear. "Said it held a book. Nothing else. Said he'd clear my debt." Wyatt kept the kid locked up tight and sent a rider straight to Owens. The note was blunt and simple. "Got what you want. Meet at the North Saloon tomorrow to trade." Next day, Owens entered the saloon, his heavy face slick with sweat. Wyatt sat across the wooden table with Mac guarding the swinging doors outside. Owens spoke first. "Here you got the item. You selling?" Wyatt stared the corrupt debt collector down. "I have terms. You back off Clara and her boy completely. Cut all ties right now." Owens narrowed his greasy little eyes. Is that all? Owens pretended to chew on it, then simply smiled and nodded. "Deal." Wyatt carefully watched that crooked grin, knowing damn well you never trust a frontier snake to walk straight. He was definitely plotting something dirty. But Wyatt kept a solid poker face. "Mind if I ask one more thing, Owens?" "What is it?" "Miller's ruined store. Did you burn that down all by yourself?" Owens twitched. "Excuse me if I'm wrong. Just walk away." Owens stood up, stopped at the door, and looked back. "Better stay on your daddy's good side, boy. Don't stir the dust." Owens tipped his hat and left. Wyatt stared at the empty glass. Deal done, but nothing was resolved. Owens would run straight to Silas. "Now you and I know a cattle baron hits back hard." Wyatt walked home. The autumn sky stretched wide. He suddenly remembered old Doc Vance's advice. Real loyalty ain't ever bought with silver. Wyatt stopped dead. Was he just trying to protect Clara? Or was he fixing his father's corrupt empire? At first, it was both. But lately, whenever he passed the bunkhouse, seeing little Billy grab his dusty boots, watching Clara's guarded eyes finally soften, Wyatt felt completely torn about his true motives. Admitting that terrified him. Wyatt walked on. Mac rushed up at the ranch. "The main house wants you, not your father." It's Martha, Wyatt's mother Silas's tough wife. Wyatt headed straight up the porch. His mother sat inside pouring some sherry. As he walked in, she set the bottle down. "Sit." "You wanted me?" Martha looked at him. Weathered face, but razor-sharp eyes. "You're that woman's stitches real well." "So I'm told. I saw it myself. Perfect seams. She's got genuine class." Wyatt watched his mother silently. She went right on. "Whatever your father barks about, I'm not kicking her out. Selling a gentle soul like her in town is a sin." "Mother." "Don't thank me. I liked her honest eyes. Eyes don't lie out here on the frontier." Wyatt felt a sudden warmth. Martha added more. "Her little boy is darling, too. Chubby cheeks. Name's Billy." "Billy. That's a mighty fine name." Martha grabbed her glass. Wyatt stood up. "Thank you, Mother. Go on now." He stepped outside. He stood in the dirt yard, watching the autumn sun sink low, casting gold over the bunkhouse roof. That evening, Wyatt was closely checking the black ledger when Clara gently knocked. "Come in." Clara entered, handing him a hand-stitched leather pouch. Dark blue fabric with tiny desert flowers beautifully embroidered on it. "It ain't much, but thanks for everything." Wyatt took it. "You made this." Wyatt studied the rugged pouch for a minute. "Mighty fine work." Clara's cheeks flushed. "Just a token. Sorry to intrude." As she turned, Wyatt spoke. "Clara." She froze. I met Owens down at the saloon. Made him swear to leave you alone. Clara slowly turned around. Will he keep his word? Wyatt was dead honest. No idea. You're honest, Clara laughed softly. You ever see a cowboy get shy? Wyatt quickly looked away into the dark. Gather around, folks. Clara turned away, blushing. I'll be careful, she whispered, slipping out. Wyatt pocketed her blue pouch. The ledger his corrupt father, Silas, all vanished from his mind. That, frankly, terrified him. Then came another knock. Little Billy. You asleep, mister? Not at all. Then talk with me. Wyatt just watched as the 5-year-old marched in and plopped right down beside him. Why do you keep visiting my mama? Got things to discuss. What things? Grown-up talk. I'm grown. 5 ain't grown, kid. We'll talk when you hit 6. Billy pouted, then tugged on Wyatt's heavy duster coat, asking softly, Mister, my mama is pretty. Wyatt stayed dead quiet. Right. I think she's the prettiest lady ever. Sure. Then you think so too? Wyatt just stared down. How could a 5-year-old speak so boldly? Billy just flashed a cheeky grin. Your ears are red. They are not. Go to sleep. Billy stood up, giggling. At the door, he looked back. I like you. Wyatt held his tongue. Not scared without a PA, 'cause you're here. Billy left the room. Wyatt sat alone in the dark room, chewing on those words. Not scared without a paw. It pierced him deep. He buried his face in rough hands. Never again. But come dawn, everything turned upside down. Zeke stormed into the ranch house at dawn, face grim. Boss, bad news. Speak. Silas filed charges with the sheriff last night, claiming the woman's a runaway debtor, and you stole her. Wyatt's eyes went dead cold. The sheriff's riding out. Deputies hit our front gate this morning, said they'll be back tomorrow. Wyatt blinked slowly. The saloon victory was entirely fake. He thought the saloon deal was settled, but Silas had been dealing off the bottom of the deck. Wyatt stood up. They had one night. Wyatt rode to Doc Vance's place. The old man was still wide awake. After hearing the messy details, Doc nodded slowly. If charges are filed, time is damn short. Deputies return tomorrow. We need a plan. Now, folks, here's where it gets wild. Only one way. We hit the sheriff with worse charges. We expose Silas Vance's corruption first. Wyatt knew that strategy, but there was a massive hitch. The ledger ain't enough. We need an eyewitness on that paper to testify, and Mr. Nash won't risk his own neck. Doc stood up. I'll testify. Wyatt, I signed that crooked paper too. They forced my hand, but it's haunted me for over 10 years. Time to make it right. Wyatt stared at the old man in awe. He finally bowed his head deep. Thank you. Don't. I owe Thomas Miller this truth. They drafted the affidavit that very night, merging the ledger records with Doc's sworn testimony. Before sunrise, Wyatt rode hard to the marshal's station to file it, beating the deputies to his ranch. The law moved fast. With Silas Vance implicated, Silas's petty claims were put on ice. The marshal demanded time to investigate both chaotic cases together. Exhausted, Wyatt rode back home. Dawn broke blood red. But passing the front gate, the dusty yard felt wrong. The bunkhouse was totally empty. Wyatt sprinted over, kicking the door. Clara's bags, Billy's shirts. All gone. Only a blue leather pouch lay on the floorboards. Wyatt picked it up, the very pouch she gave him yesterday. Zeke came sprinting up behind him. Boss old Silas ordered her out before dawn. She fought back, but 3 ranch hands forced. Wyatt didn't finish listening. He turned back, boots heavy. Silas Vance had struck first. While Wyatt was at the marshal's, they ruthlessly evicted Clara's family. He locked himself inside the house. Squeezing the blue pouch tight, his mind went ice cold. How much time passed? Heavy spurs clanked down the hall, hammering the door. It was his father. Wyatt opened up, and the old man barged in. You filed charges? You'd actually lock up your own flesh and blood? You started this, Pa. Started what? What is that drifter woman to you anyway? Wyatt stared him down. Thomas Miller's daughter. Silas's mouth shut tight. His eyes panicked. The man whose ranch you stole. His daughter was being sold off for $100. I couldn't just ride past that. You fool. Where is Clara? Silas avoided his stare. You know he lied. Wyatt waited. Don't know. You do. Then the judge muttered low, Listen close, partner. Wyatt halted at the South Edge Saloon, never looking back. He walked out. Silas stood alone in his parlor, hands shaking violently. Outside the bunkhouse sat dead empty. The Baron stared a long while, then hollered for Dusty. Can you track where Clara ran off to? Consider it done. Dusty rode out fast. Wyatt marched straight back to his father. Silas sat on the porch, sipping whiskey, like nothing happened. Where did you send that woman? Silas set his glass down hard. I ran her off my land. Anything else? Tell me her trail. I do not know. You do. Silas squinted. You turning against your father, boy. I gave the marshal a sworn statement. Silas froze. What? Handed over Doc's testimony about Thomas's stolen dry goods store, plus the ledger. The room went dead silent. Silas stared at Wyatt. For once, pure fear flashed in the old man's eyes. You dare betray me. You crossed the line first, father. You stole Thomas's store, drove him into an early grave, and watched his daughter get traded away like cattle without blinking an eye. Silas stood up. Drop those charges immediately. I refuse. You dog. Silas raised a fist. Wyatt stood his ground. The strike never came. The Baron just shook violently and lowered his arm. Guilt flashed in his eyes. Wyatt turned away. If you know where Clara went, tell me right now. That is my final request, father. Wyatt stepped outside. Dusty was waiting by the hitching post. Found her, down at the Rusty Spur in Silver City. Word is, little Billy keeps crying. Wyatt moved fast. Hitting the saloon doors, he spotted Clara in a dim corner holding Billy tight. Billy was fast asleep. Clara's eyes were swollen red. A battered saddlebag sat by her boots. She looked up as Wyatt approached. Her face told a story. Panic relief and deep suspicion mixed together. You tracked me down. Wyatt sat across the table. I am sorry. Clara remained silent. While I saw the marshal, my father struck. It is my fault, not your fault, Wyatt. No, I should have acted a lot faster. Clara rubbed the sleeping boy's back. I will survive. When you get down to it, I reckon this hard trail is just my destiny. Destiny? Hell no. Wyatt's voice dropped like a heavy stone. Do not ever say that again. Clara looked up. Destiny is just an excuse for folks who surrender. It is not your time to fold your hand yet, Clara. Clara stared at Wyatt, her eyes trembling. I am only holding out for Billy. I know, without my boy I would have quit long ago. But you kept fighting anyway, Clara. She bit her lip hard. Then she whispered, Wyatt, why risk your neck? You bought my debt. That should be the end. You and I know truth hits hard. Why go this far? Wyatt paused. I figured out who destroyed your father. Clara's eyes narrowed tight. It was Silas. My own father. The room froze. Clara stared at Wyatt. Wyatt held her gaze steady. The man who robbed Thomas's store was my father. He and Sheriff Owens plotted to bankrupt Thomas together. Clara's lips trembled like a leaf. So you knew who I was from the start? Thomas's daughter. Yes. Is that why you paid my debt? That started it. But now Wyatt cut himself off. Clara waited patiently. Now I got a different reason. Clara studied the cowboy for a long minute. Hot tears cut through the dust on her cheeks. How do we avenge this dirty injustice? I lodged a formal warrant. Tomorrow, we march in with witnesses. What is my part in this? Ride to the marshal with me. Tell Thomas's tragedy. Remember the day they stole the store? Clara nodded slowly. I was 14. Daddy did not shed a tear, but I swore he was weeping. His eyes were bloodshot red. Hearing that Wyatt shut his eyes for a second, then looked up. Tell the marshal that story tomorrow. Clara whispered, I trust you, partner. Right then, Billy opened his eyes and flashed Wyatt a massive grin. Howdy, mister. For the first time, Wyatt gave the boy a genuine smile. That night, Wyatt avoided Silas's ranch entirely. Instead, he begged Doc Vance to hide them for a few days. Doc surrendered a spare room without one complaint. Little Billy walked in wide-eyed, instantly pointing at a sprawling peach tree outside. Mama, look at those sweet peaches. Clara grabbed the boy's hand, stepping inside. Before the clinic door shut tight, her eyes locked with Wyatt's. Clara gave a silent nod. Wyatt left the clinic walking the lonesome dirt roads alone. Midnight. You and I know justice ain't easy. Pacing Silver City, Wyatt's head spun. His father the ledger, Thomas's store, Clara the crooked sheriff. Everything collided at once. Wyatt suddenly remembered Miller's words. Paying silver doesn't mean you own a soul. Real bonds ain't bought. Wyatt stopped dead in his tracks. He originally bought Clara for $100 silver. He wanted to protect her and fix his corrupt father's sins. But something changed these past few days. Little Billy's laugh. Clara's calloused hands sewing, her fierce eyes holding the boy in that dark cabin. His heart grew heavy. He needed to protect them. Wyatt stared at the starry western sky. This is what love feels like. Wyatt finally admitted it to himself. But this wasn't the time for soft feelings. A hard reckoning was waiting for him. Clearing Clara's name and exposing his own father's dirty deeds came first. Wyatt adjusted his gun belt and kept walking. 2 days passed. While marshals investigated, Vance Wyatt tracked down Silas again. He brought Old Man Miller along. Silas's eyes widened, seeing him. You came, Miller. We gotta talk now. Silas stared at the old man for a long time, then hung his heavy head. I never thought this lie would last so long. We are making it right today. Silas let out a ragged breath and looked at Wyatt. Take me to the courthouse. Wyatt nodded. The three rode into town together. With Silas confessing, that ledger became solid proof. The marshal immediately ordered Vance brought in. The next morning, the reckoning arrived. Folks crowded the dusty courthouse yard. Deputies dragged Vance inside. Silas Vance walked behind him. Both men looked pale and grim. Wyatt stood quietly on the far side. Miller and Silas stood beside him. Clara was there too, holding little Billy at the edge of the crowd. She looked terrified, but held her ground. Marshal Davies gripped the ledger, glaring down at Silas. Silas, this ledger proves that in 1882, you stole the Miller Ranch using a forged contract. What say you to this? Silas sneered. That book is a fake. A dead man's son-in-law wrote it. You can't trust that garbage. We got witnesses. Miller stepped forward. I was in the room that night. He forced my signature, but I am telling the truth now. Silas stepped up. I was there too. Silas forced me to sign. Silas turned pale. How dare you? Davies cut him off with a sharp, low voice. The proof and witnesses are here. Any excuses? Silas's eyes darted around until they found Wyatt. They locked eyes. Picture this with me. His father's eyes held pure anger and fear. Wyatt never even blinked. One of the mayor's hired guns stepped into the dirt. A deputy working under Silas Vance. I got something to confess to. Silas Vance froze. I helped the sheriff run Thomas Miller's cattle business straight into the ground. But Vance gave the orders, and Vance pulled his strings. The loyal henchman had flipped. Vance shook with rage. What lies are you spewing? It is true. Davies studied both men carefully. Throw them both in the cells. Deputies swarmed in. Grabbed by the arms, Silas screamed at Wyatt. How could you destroy your own father? Is this loyalty? Wyatt stared right at the old man. His eyes burned, but his voice never broke. A father is supposed to teach loyalty by being an honest man first. Silas was dragged away. Heavy silence fell. Wyatt walked toward Clara. Tears carved clean lines through the dust on Clara's cheeks. Little Billy peeked out, spotted Wyatt, and happily reached out his tiny hand. Wyatt gently squeezed the boy's hand. Right then, Marshal Davies called out to Clara. Are you Thomas Miller's daughter, Clara? Wiped her face and stepped forward. Yes. Can you prove it? Clara hesitated. Then she pulled half a broken silver pocket watch from her dress pocket. Wyatt stepped forward. I brought the other half. He pulled the silver piece from his vest. He found it in Silas's safe. Wyatt pushed the silver pieces together, and they fit perfectly. The engraving was complete. It was the Miller Ranch crest. Gasps rippled through the shocked crowd. Marshal Davies inspected the watch. Then Wyatt whispered softly to Clara. Will you show them the boys back? Clara set Billy down. She lifted his little flannel shirt, revealing a dark red birthmark. It was shaped exactly like a roaring flame. Miller stepped forward. Thomas Miller had that same mark in the exact same spot. I saw it myself. Davies nodded. You are the true Miller heir. Now you and I know justice tastes sweet. The stolen ranch will be legally returned. Clara's knees finally gave out, but Wyatt caught her arm. Pull up a chair. Clara knelt in the dust, burying her face. Her shoulders shook. Father. That word carried so much old pain, even the gawking townsfolk looked away. Some folks teared up. Little Billy squatted, grabbing her hand. Ma, why are you crying? I'm happy. Folks smile when they're glad. Clara smiled through tears. Billy beamed, then looked at Wyatt. Mr. Ma smiled. She did. Wyatt grinned. Clara walked beside him, leaving the courthouse. Billy held Wyatt's hand, walking ahead. You knew everything, Clara said softly. I did. You must have been scared, spotting me in town, seeing my life. Wyatt stayed quiet. Not scared. Guilty. Clara watched him. Because you knew about my pa and did nothing. Should have found you sooner. She disagreed. It ain't your fault. Silas Vance did that. Doing nothing was my sin too. Clara stopped walking for a second. She said, You gave Billy a warm meal. That's plenty. Wyatt froze in his tracks. Clara walked ahead. Billy looked back and hollered, Mister, hurry up! Wyatt watched them a long while, then followed. Doc Vance waited by the front gate. He spotted Wyatt. Good work. Thanks to you, Doc Vance. Nonsense, just did my duty. The Doc Vance studied Clara. Thomas's girl. She nodded. Yes, sir. You favor him. Same eyes. Tears welled up. You knew Pa. Sure did. Good man. Justice is served. He looked down at Billy. This your boy? Billy stared up at him. Mister, we getting apples from that tree? The Doc Vance chuckled. When they're ripe. When's that? Fall. When's fall? The Doc Vance looked at Wyatt. He'll wait all spring. Wyatt ruffled Billy's hair. We'll return this fall. Billy beamed at Clara. Ma, can we? Clara met the Doc Vance's eyes and nodded. Yeah, we can. The court ordered Silas to return his dry goods fortune to Clara. Sheriff Owens got jailed for fraud. Miller's ruin became Denver's hottest gossip. A rich tycoon destroyed overnight by his own son. But smart folks knew the real truth. Now you and I know his old sins caused this. Anyway, spring finally rolled into town. White blossoms bloomed on the Doc Vance's apple tree. Wyatt stood there, asking Clara her plans. Clara watched Billy playing. "I'll open a small tailor shop with the settlement money. It's what Pa did. Even raising a boy alone." Clara paused. "I can manage alone." Wyatt studied the tree. "The Doc Vance didn't plant this, you know. Previous owner did. He just waters it and it grows." Clara looked over. "What are you getting at?" Wyatt met her eyes. "Can I stay?" Clara studied him silently. She glanced at the apple tree. "Things grow better with someone watering them." Wyatt's ears burned red. Billy ran over. "Mr. Flowers bloomed." He tugged Wyatt's hand. Dragged away, Wyatt looked back at Clara. She was smiling, a sweet dimple showing. Seeing that smile, Wyatt turned forward. Billy caught a white petal beneath the tree, giggling loudly. A spring breeze swept through. Years later, townsfolk shared this tale. Word was a neat tailor shop opened north of Denver. The owner stitched better than anyone, and a certain ex-deputy sat there every single day. Folks knew he wasn't there buying cotton, but nobody dared say a single word about it, 'cause a young boy always waited for him out front. "Pa!" Around that boy's neck hung a mended silver locket. 2 pieces finally joined whole. True love ain't something you can price. Real bonds ain't bought. They grow over time. So what do you and I make of Wyatt and Clara's tale? A desperate frontier woman and a man risking it all. It started with dirty money, but ended as something no gold could ever buy. For the next frontier tale, hit like and subscribe. Check out the wild stories on your screen. Have a mighty fine day, folks. Much obliged, folks.